We all understand that mechanics, aim, editing, these things are all important to most people, and everyone addresses these things, but nobody addresses the way that they think. You do not appreciate this. The way that you think significantly affects the rate of improvement in any skill. In this video, I'm gonna list out 4 of the most important ideas that you need to adopt today so that you can skyrocket your rate of improvement in the world of Fortnite. The first mistake that people make is they don't take practice seriously. And I'm talking about genuine effort. When you play 1v1s or when you're playing scrims, and I even notice a lot of pros making this mistake, you don't actually care enough about the effort that you put in. And this comes from 2 places, okay? Either it comes from a place of ego or it comes from a place of laziness, okay? Let's explain the ego one first. It's a subconscious cope that you have that when you don't try in scrims and you end up losing, you can just cop out and say, I didn't try. It hurts way more to say, oh my God, I tried my absolute hardest. I tried 100% and I still lost. And the secret to fixing this is understand that your effort doesn't guarantee a result. Just make sure that your effort is there. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get first place. Yes, your effort and your focus should be on trying to get the first place, right? And trying to improve yourself in such a way that you do get first place in the end, but don't let your results dictate your mood. You have to be detached from the results, but attached to the effort and the focus and your inputs, because that way the results that come out won't affect your mood such that your next scrim doesn't get affected, right? Because you can totally tilt and feel really down on yourself. And it's a very hard place to get to mentally, but it's a very important one to reach, because I think a lot of people are scared to try hard because it means if and when they actually fail or don't do well in a scrim, it will hurt their ego, because deep down they know they tried their 100%. But it doesn't matter because you're going to improve. It's okay that you tried your 100% and didn't get the result that you want. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that actually where your skill level's at? Isn't it better to know that now instead of when it actually hits tournament day, you find out and you're surprised? You want to know that now that you're not ready, so that you can improve appropriately to get to the spot that you need to be to get the results that you want. You can't lie to yourself. And a lot of people are subconsciously lying to themselves by either not putting enough effort or coping with ego. And the other one is laziness. And you have to actually ask yourself, it's like, what do you want from this game? And it's okay to not want pro player, right? You don't need to reach for that. Ask yourself honestly, where do I want to be in X time frame? And then adjust your effort and your focus so that that result is inevitable. I put this idea first because it's one of the most common things that I see across players is that they always are lackluster in their effort, in their practice. And then after they're like, oh, I practiced 2 weeks. And then I'll watch how they practice for a day or two, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you may have practiced for 2 weeks, but realistically, you practiced for 0 days. You haven't actually genuinely practiced. And that's the key, guys. You need to fix how you practice so that the practice isn't wasted, and you'll be happy because you'll actually get the results that you want. The reason you're not improving is because you're not practicing properly, right? You need to reflect, look at your mistakes, actually try in scrims, and don't be afraid even after you try that you fail, because that's really the truth, you know? And the truth hurts. But you need to face it before tournament day so you can adjust and fix everything so that when tournament day comes around, you're going to get the result that you want. The second mindset mistake that people make in the world of Fortnite is not considering lose conditions. A lot of people will consider the win conditions. What do I need to do to win? What objective or condition needs to be met before I can win the game? You know, some examples could be maybe I need to take height because I have the mats to do so. Maybe I need to jump into this box so this guy doesn't heal so I don't throw the fight. You know, so that'll end the fight if I have an HP advantage. There are examples like this where the win condition is clear and what you need to do to win the fight is clear, but a different mindset, which is also considering what your lose condition is. And this will be really helpful because it'll avoid a lot of throws. If you're in a competitive endgame in trios and you're in second moving and you just got your cap match, your cap everything, understanding that the only way you lose is by going for more refreshes. Why do you need another kill? Why do you incur extra risk for no reason? When if you project the game into the future, if you extrapolate the game into the future, if you just do nothing and tarp, you will have guaranteed top 3. Now, a lot of people will incur a lot of risk when it's 20 teams left for no reason, when you have the loot to get a top 3. And instead, why don't you just play placement until top 3 and then go for the refresh? Because at least you cashed out the points between top 20 and top 3. Because that makes a lot more sense, right? And understanding your lose condition is really important. Another example, let's say you're waiting at the end of a moving and next moving is about to show. When this next moving is about to show, there's a mountain next to you. You need to mentally prepare yourself for the possibility that that moving zone pulls up the mountain, because one of the only ways to lose is if that moving zone pulls up the mountain and you're not ready for it. So what do pro players do in this case? They'll purposely position themselves on a higher layer for that possibility of the moving zone pulling up the mountain. Does that make sense? So because they actually consider their lose condition, right? Maybe they're doing amazing. It's really important to consider both, right? I'm not advocating for, remove the idea of win condition. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying consider both because both are extremely helpful. How do I win the game? And what's the only way I lose? How do I throw the game so you can prevent it as well? That's useful in competitive Fortnite. That's useful in fights in general. And it's a really useful mindset in the entirety of esports to consider. And I think this is something that a lot of people forget. There's a lot of players who don't even consider win condition. And then there's the next group of people, which are the people who consider win conditions. And then there's a select few people who consider win conditions and lose conditions. You'll often hear pro players in communication, they'll often tell their teammates, yo, don't do anything. Just chill, just chill, just chill. And what they're communicating is we have everything we need. All we have to do is nothing. And that sounds weird for people who don't understand competitive Fortnite. But if you're in the world of competitive Fortnite, you understand exactly what that means, which is we have everything we need. And the only way we lose is by doing extra actions, stuff that we don't need to do, stuff that doesn't actually benefit us and actually just incurs risk when we have guaranteed points in our inventory. The third mindset to adopt, it's actually not about whether it's your fault or not. And you'll see this across the world of esports where people will complain, this is my fault or this is not my fault. And the entire thing is broken. When you talk about whether things are your fault, it's an extremely poor mindset to have because when you consider something to not be your fault, whether it's true or not, you're actually going to stop the thought process there because when you say something's not your fault, you're not going to look for other possibilities for change. When you think something's your fault, you're going to explore the possibilities of change and actually look for new solutions. And that's a very useful mindset to be in because you would have never done that if you just waved it off and thought it wasn't your fault. And that's really important. Now, you might see pro players complaining and raging about the game, but that's just an emotional response. Don't think that in the back of their mind, they're not considering what they did wrong in that play. They always are. And it doesn't matter what their outburst is because they always are considering what they did wrong so that they can potentially fix it in the future. Really good quote or line to follow to understand why the mindset that I'm offering is better than what you're currently doing is it's not about whether it's your fault or not, but it is your responsibility as a competitor to fix it. And it's a much better mindset to be in to consider that everything is your fault. 100% of things that happen are your fault, than to consider that 90% of things are your fault. Because if you consider that 90% of things are your fault, you're still in your mind, you're still going to be looking for the 10% of things that are not your fault and give yourself the window to cope out of certain mistakes that you do make. Many people in the Fortnite community are victim to the idea of the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you want to understand what that is, just Google it. It's been studied and appreciated that high performers in any skill, let alone Fortnite, in any skill, vastly underestimate their skills. Isn't that interesting? Top performers are the ones who underestimate their skills. And the people at the middle of the pack, or people who are super beginner, vastly overestimate their skill. They don't appreciate how much there is left. And again, I'm not saying that to overwhelm you. I'm saying that so that you appreciate it and actually make progress and actually change the rate of improvement that you've been making, because clearly you're not happy with your rate of improvement if you're watching this video. A personal story from my experience coaching, a lot of people who are 0 to 1K PR unironically have the biggest egos. They have egos that are almost hindering them because they think they're much better than they are. They're like, oh, can I go pro in like 6 months? And I'm like, no. In my experience coaching tier 1 and tier 2 pros, they're the most humble. Ability to ask questions is there. They understand that even though they're a better player than I am, they still have stuff to learn. And there's stuff that I could tell them that they can learn. The learning mindset is really important. And I always use this quote as well. Be confident when you're performing. That ego is useful when you're performing. And be humble in review. Because you need to be humble to accept the feedback that's coming back to you. And you need to be humble to understand that you did make mistakes. You can make mistakes. And there's so much left to learn. The fourth, last, and most important mindset mistake to fix is the fact that you just need to review and reflect, which is another word for VOD review. But you don't actually need to have a VOD review session, because every time I tell people that they need to review and reflect, they get very scared. They're like, oh, it's like, come on, I don't really want to do a VOD review session. Like, do I really have to sit down and look at replays for 3 hours? And my answer to you is no, you actually don't. You actually don't need to sit down for 3 hours every single day and review. But I am telling you that you do need to review and reflect, and you do need to care about what the mistake was. And you can do that in real time right after the mistake was done. You will get to the point at a certain skill level where you can just review things in your mind. You'll see pro players do this all the time, where they'll discuss with their teammates right after the scrim or right after the tournament game. Less so in the tournament game, because I think reviewing in tournaments is not the best, but because it ruins your confidence. But in scrims, they'll often ask themselves and discuss amongst themselves what the mistake was so that they can fix it in the next scrim. With that being said, guys, we're just going to summarize the 4 mindsets that we talked about today. The first mistake is that people are treating practice inappropriately. The second mindset mistake is that you don't consider loose conditions. The third mindset mistake is it's not actually about whether it's your fault or not. And the fourth mindset mistake is the fact that you don't review and reflect, and you don't need to make it such a big deal that it overwhelms you, but you do need to do it, and you can do it right after the fight or after the scrim. In my coaching program, I tell my students the same stuff that I'm telling you in this video, and they are getting better because of it. So if you do the same thing here, you will get better. I promise.